All right, welcome everyone. For those that maybe missed introductions, my name is Cody Christensen. I'm with the consultant team on this planning project. We also have Zach Jorgensen with City Forestry and Barb Mundahl with Public Works, City Street Design. So I will share my screen here. Just attempt to. So the goal of this breakout is to get some more feedback, hopefully have some smaller numbers so people have the opportunity to speak up and give us some feedback on, you know, if you have leanings towards facility types or any other questions or concerns that we could maybe get to in the next 25 minutes. Are people able to unmute themselves?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
Yep.
So the icebreakers that the city had put together, we're kind of thinking about, you know, first word that comes to your mind when you picture the Parkway and Summit Avenue, and then also thinking about, you know,
got a different one.
in 50 years, what will this Parkway be? How will it function? That type of thing as you start to think about this potential planning process.
Yeah.
Can we ask about?
Yeah, someone.
Are we supposed to be writing something or?
No, feel free to just jump in.
Let's ask about, like, no, other options.
We have staff recording these, and the meeting itself will be recorded as well. So just feel free to unmute yourself, speak.
Unmuted.
You know, a question I have is the impact on the trees. I know many people are at this meeting precisely because they are worried about the trees. And I didn't hear much of a discussion of that. I saw drawings, but I didn't hear much about the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, the tree impact is definitely one of the key pieces of what we're trying to preserve. You know, it's a big part of what is Summit Avenue, both from a form perspective as well as a historical perspective. So, you know, city parks and city forestry have, you know, been a part of the conversation throughout. I don't know, Zach, if you have anything you want to add to that.
Oh, to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was booted out of the room. Could you repeat the question? Good timing, right?
Right, perfect timing. So the question, the third was about the trees and how those will be impacted on the project.
Yeah, you know, I think I saw in the comment section someone had mentioned that, you know, it was too early to tell, and you know, in a way that is true, because until we have final design, we don't know. You know, the early looks at the concepts, you know, there are options that preserve that curb, which, you know, would reduce impacts to, well, basically nothing. And then going from there, you know, I know a number of the comments or a number of the concepts were shown as not recommended based on our walk the other day as well. So we are looking at the impacts. We've done an assessment or analysis on the critical root zones, and with the walk, you know, certainly those decisions are being made as far as which concepts really aren't recommended based on impacts to the trees, noting that the trees and vegetation and open space are key to the core.
The solution seems very forced. Were there other options looked at? For instance, Ide Mill, which makes connections at both ends. Is this the only solution? This seems very problematic.
Solution to what?
To this
Exactly.
regional trail, yeah. a through trail.
I don't think there's
Other
a
options
problem.
looked at?
As someone who does bike on Summit, I would say there's a problem. I feel very squished, between the cars and the that are parked and that are moving. The doors will swing open. You got to watch for that. And the lanes, the bike lanes tend to act more like clear zones, that just give cars a little more wiggle room, that treat it more like a shoulder. So that I would say is a problem that currently exists.
Is
Well, I bike
Marshall
on
Avenue
Summit
an
too.
alternative? For people who bike on Summit, is Marshall Avenue an alternative?
Marshall is worse.
And I'd
Marshall's
say
much
no.
worse.
Anytime you go down the street, there are lots of bicyclists there. Many people want to bike on Summit. So, and they should be able to. There's plenty of room. The question and the problem to solve is how to make it safer for everyone. I agree that I'd like to have as many old trees remain as possible. Over 50% would be great. But I'd also like to replant whatever needs to come down. This is a road that's going to be designed for the next 50 years. We can make it beautiful and we can make it safe for walkers, bicyclists, automobiles, and people on scooters.
But it
So one of
won't
my-
be beautiful if the trees are taken down. And as you're saying, 50% of the trees, that would be unconscionable and would not be acceptable to anyone who lives, works, drives, walks, bicycles on Summit.
And let me say, 50% was an uninformed number I threw out. I'm just a participant.
And so,
I just see the purpose of ruining a beautiful boulevard that has lasted for over 100 years because people want to bicycle on one certain street.
Well, we've prioritized cars over bicycles for over 100 years. So if something has to give and we want to keep the trees, then I hope that we would consider using some of that parking area to ease up the bicycling safety situation and still leave parking and traffic. So parking shouldn't be our top priority.
But it is a reality. People do drive cars, and many people living on Summit do not have garages. So this is a serious question. I'm not being glib.
And they had the numbers.
So I've tried to say something a few times. And as someone who commutes on Summit, people who choose to commute by bicycle are making a sustainable choice in terms of how they're engaging in transportation. And I think it's very important that this project certainly pay attention to recreation, but also pay attention to people who are making sustainable commuting choices. And what I hear is an underappreciation for people who are using alternative forms of transportation, alternative meaning not cars, to the planning of this project, because the recreation that people are talking about and the commuter style riding, they can't be on the same exact infrastructure. If you have those bike riders in the lanes and you have aggressive car drivers, then the bikers are going to get squeezed out even more. So I'm a little bit concerned about kind of the very single-minded attitude about the type of bike rider that this is all designed for, because I think it has to be much more creatively designed. And I also think we need to stop designing infrastructure for cars.
Maybe one of the safety questions, it seems to me, should be about improving car safety. That is, slowing cars or other means of making cars drive more carefully. I bike Summit quite a bit recreationally. If it were paved, it would be about 1,000% safer than it is with the potholes and ruts it has. But I just don't feel that we need to have a separated bike lane. The buffer, the painted buffer for me, and I'm old, is enough. I feel, I have to watch. Of course I have to watch, but I just don't see wrecking a whole historic boulevard for this. I just think it's a problem that it's a solution looking for a problem.
Absolutely.
I do think that Summit
So-
needs some modernization and updating. I think that, you know, the idea that it could be better is real and realistic. I don't think that this is quite the right answer, but I do think changes are in order.
How do we speak here? Are we supposed to? Who's got the
Yeah.
say as to who can
So an
speak?
open forum.
Ken Rockler and Susie DeShawn. First of all, we don't live on Summit, so I don't know whether our input maybe isn't quite as important. But a couple of people brought something up vis-a-vis the message board, and that's who's pushing this is the first question I have. And the second question I have is, this sounds to me like it's a done deal. In other words, even if the vast majority, and I see there's people on both sides of this, but even if the vast majority of people don't want this, it doesn't look like we're being offered another solution. Is that correct?
I can comment. I've been on the design review committee. It's not a done deal in the sense that the whole idea is to come up with a plan that has the acceptance of the community and then submit it for funding. There are certain requirements that need to be met in order to secure that funding, but the ability to the community to come to agreement on a consistent design is questionable, and so is the obtainment of funding by the Metropolitan Council for such a plan. So it's really a two-step process. First, a plan that makes sense to all the stakeholders, and then securing the funding necessary to fund it.
So it's not a fait accompli at this time.
No, it can't be, because first you have to have a plan that people understand and buy into, and then you have to secure the funding for it, and certain requirements have to be met in order to secure the funding for a regional trail.
I'm sorry, who's speaking? I can't tell by the screen. Who's that?
Janet Fay.
Scott? Well, I would say this, I can't tell right now. I'm watching the messages. It appears that there's more people opposed than in favor, but the only way to know something like that is to have a meeting. Because there might be a lot of people that have an opinion either way that aren't on this Zoom call at this time. But are the neighbors going to have a chance to have a meeting?
That's what
I-
this.
So the
I
neighborhood
don't know if
associations
any-
have a place in the DAC, and there will be more time for public engagement. And I think the hope is that the summer engagement that Mary talked about in her presentation will hopefully be an in-person forum. So there will be another opportunity to gather feedback and further the discussion on the plan.
Cody,
I want to make sure that I give more people a chance to talk. So I know Maria and Tim have had their hand up.
I live on Summit Avenue and have a driveway on Summit Avenue, the only access to my garage. How is this going to impact me? I don't understand the concept of raised and lowered pathways and how you get across them. I just don't get the whole thing.
Okay. So let's see if there's a good picture of one. So for example, here, can you see my screen?
Yeah, but it's pretty flat.
So if there was a driveway over here on the right side that would normally come out, this red dash line is the existing curb. So your driveway apron would come out and stop at that existing curb today. And this bike lane is kind of where the existing parked cars are.
But
So
is the bike lane on the same elevation as the car lanes? Because I thought I had read they weren't going to be.
Right. So in this instance, yes, this bike facility would be up at what we call sidewalk level, so 6 inches curb height above the roadway. So your driveway that slopes down in this current green space would be reconstructed to keep at that sidewalk level through the bikeway, and your new ramp down to the street would be in this short green section here between the bikeway and the roadway, or parking, depending on what the road.
You
looks
could,
like.
Is that
you-
at our cost? Is that at the cost of the homeowner?
That would be
Who
a project cost.
All right.
When into those types of details, that would be a project type cost.
But not paid for by those bike riders who don't pay road taxes.
if you want to see an example of what this looks like, you could check out Como Avenue between Snelling and Hamlin. And it's a perfect example of that design.
Okay.
You know, I want to just get back to the trees. I know everybody loves Summit, and there's multiple ways that we enjoy it, and I applaud the sustainable commuters. I really do. I think it's a beautiful place. But what in each design there is a tree loss, and I know that you have an idea on the one-way trail or the two-way trail. What's the high and what's the low? Is it 50? Is it 150? How many trees are going to be gone in those designs?
So this plan is looking at a very high level. So I'm not going to put out any sort of number. Just that preservation of existing trees and tree canopies is a priority goal of the plan.
No, I get that, Cody. I think, but I know you guys have been down the path a little bit. I know forestry knows every tree on every block, and it's great. And there is going to be a tree loss. We have to acknowledge that. You should know at least an estimate in one-way trail design, how many trees are going to be gone. And in the two-way trail, there's going to be a certain number of trees. I can't imagine that in your study, you didn't look at that or have some idea of, well, this tree is going to be gone, that tree is going to be gone. And then a secondary question is, with Mitchell and Hamlin, all the parking there, and as well as the parking for Grand Avenue and the merchants and the consumers, where is that going to go to if you lose it on Summit? 2 questions there. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
No, I thank you for those questions, and I know those are something that we hear quite often. So I imagine that will be part of the FAQ that will come out of this discussion this evening.
I want to echo my concern about loss of any trees, particularly with what's going on with the climate chaos or change, whatever we want to call it. Trees are suck carbon out of the air. And I believe St. Paul has got too many projects going on. I mean, some that there's not necessarily control over with the ash borer, but too much is happening where trees are being cut down, and we need to place a very high priority on keeping the existing trees. A question that I have, I also support the sustainable transportation of biking and safe biking. Has it been considered for the cars to switch Summit Avenue to one-way traffic and then have one-way on Grand? Would that free up some space for the biking, the parking, the cars?
Good question.
Too many businesses on
Yeah, Mary, thank you. Thank you for bringing up traffic. My name is Susan and I live on Summit. And I don't think anybody knows that our street changed to 25 miles an hour last year. And if that was enforced and if the road was paved, not the gravel and oil, if it was actually paved, 25 miles an hour is a residential street, which we are. And if that was enforced by police, if there are a lot of corridors around the Twin Cities that I know, there are cops and you're going to get a ticket. And if this corridor is known, you better go 25 miles an hour. The safety would improve tremendously. And the bike lane, what we have in place is great. It's a bike lane. We have the sidewalks. We have a beautiful street with trees. It's a residential corridor. And I think if we can enforce the speed limit, I think that would really help a lot. And we don't need to build and change lanes and add greenways. It's already there.
As somebody who bikes every day around St. Paul, I wish people in cars would follow speed limits and not swerve into bike lanes or park in bike lanes, forcing me out into the street. But that's not a safe solution, hoping that people's behaviors change. It just doesn't seem to happen. Having separated bike lanes doesn't rely on the good-natured behavior of the drivers. So I'm definitely in favor of that.
In fact, I'll just add that in order to qualify for funding for a regional trail, you either have to have separated bike lanes or a raised bike lane so it's not on the surface as the road. So one of those two things have to happen before you can even secure funding for a regional trail. Use that information however you like, but that's just the way things are.
Yeah, we're coming up on 3 minutes left, so I want to make sure Mauricio or Maria, I see you've had your hands up for a while, and I don't know that we've heard from either of you. So if you want to unmute yourself and.
Hey, my name is Mauricio. Thanks everybody for the conversation, and I just wanted to put my point of view. I'm a bike commuter, and I just look at the interstate. Right, it is super convenient to get from Minneapolis to St. Paul. Because you aren't conflicting with anybody. It's a thoroughfare. It is fantastic for driving. And when I try to think of what equivalent would be for biking, it's not Charles because there's a stop sign at every intersection from St. Paul to Midway. It's not Energy Park Drive because there's massive trucks going by. So the way that I use it, and I bike from Minneapolis to St. Paul all the time, is Summit. And I really appreciate where there's wide separation between the cars and the bike lane. So that's why I am personally in favor of the raised separated bike lane, kind of what we have in Como. And that is a really safe and nice ride. Thanks.
I'd like to throw out an idea here that hasn't been discussed. Why not use the alleys behind Summit Avenue, improve those thoroughfares for bikers? I'm serious. Oh, people walk down there all the time. Why not have an actual good alley thoroughfare for bikers?
I believe that's private property.
I don't think so. The city plows it.
No, they
No. You just got to find a way to keep people from backing out into bikes.
Right.
Well,
the city doesn't
what are
have
the statistics as far as safety goes? mean, how many people have been injured? How many people have been killed?
Not getting killed on a bike is a really low bar.
Yeah, and if people don't feel safe, they won't bike. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. People have to feel safe.
Well, we feel pretty safe, and I'm an amputee, so when we go to Grand Old Creamery or other places there, I take an electric cart. Maybe it's just luck, but I've never seen any problem, and I don't feel unsafe.
There's an awful lot of people biking on.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of people biking on Summit who apparently do feel it's safe enough.
And there's a lot of people biking on the sidewalks on Summit that apparently don't, especially by Dale where I am.
So if I understand it, in order for funding.
I want to pause there because we're going to get kicked out. So I want to thank everybody.